C'è un momento in cui le idee non restano più chiuse nei libri, un istante in cui i numeri diventano volti e le parole diventano azioni. Benvenuto a Renaissance in Economics, l'evento dove la ricerca economica civile prende forma, diventa dialogo, visione, futuro. Qui tu sei protagonista, nel pensare, nel proporre, nel condividere un'economia nuova, perché ogni rinascimento nasce da chi crede che sia possibile. Renaissance in Economics 2025, dove l'economia incontra la dignità, dove il futuro si costruisce insieme.
So, hi to everyone, and it is my pleasure and honor to start this second day of our conference by introducing Professor Bruno Frey, which, what should I say? I don't want to say too formal things, but, you know, substantial things. Bruno is one of our academic heroes, academic references, fathers, because in these years he encouraged us a lot. He gave us a lot of push to go beyond Homo economicus, to go beyond GDP, basically with his research work. And this research work achieved very, very high level, as you know. No? I was controlling now the number of citations of, I mean, one of the most important works he did, the Journal of Economic Literature, and also Economic Journal, no? What do we know about happiness? Two surveys about happiness, just a survey of most of his works, not only his works. And it's more than 5,500 citations on this, of this paper on the Journal of Economic Literature. So basically, he's a reference in the happiness literature. He's a reference for many other things. I always remember that he admonishes us not to use subjective well-being as a straightforward well-being indicators, and we made a lot of lectures about that. He came in Italy many times, no, to conference organized with Stefano and Luigino about civil economics. And something which I really think it's important and inspiring for us is also, we talk a lot about participation in these days, and I always quote Bruno paper when he talks about participatory utility, no? Which gives us a very important law of life, that if you involve people in a process, they are in favor of your proposal. If you don't involve them, they are not in favor, because they are offended they have not been involved. So I think that this participatory utility is really important, and this is the basis of many of our bottom-up activities, no? Where we try to create participation, active citizenships, like energy communities and co-programming and these things. So I think I spoke even too much. Now I leave the floor to Bruno, where I hope that he will tell us now where we should go from where we are now with our manifesto and the common idea of broadening the horizons of people who work in economics and to have a higher impact in the society. So Bruno, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much for this very kind introduction. It's me who has to congratulate Leonardo Becchetti for having undertaken this Renaissance in economics. When I first heard that term, I thought that you would like to go back to the olden times in Florence when Michelangelo and Da Vinci was here. And then, of course, when I read the manifesto, I found out that you want to look forward. And I very much support this idea. So congratulations. It's wonderful that you did that. The problem is, of course, that we don't know what the future will be. You don't know it, I don't know it, Trump doesn't know it, not even the Pope knows it, what the future will be. So we must concentrate on the present. And I would like to make 2 suggestions when you think about doing research in a economics which is not back but rather looks forward. The first is, don't do research on environmental economics. Why? It's not because the environment and the ecology are unimportant. The reason is a different one. There are thousands and thousands of very well-equipped economists who did work on environmental economics. So when you now start, you don't have a chance. So forget it. Don't do environmental economics. The second suggestion, don't do psychological economics, or as it's wrongly called, behavioral economics, for the same reason. Psychology is important, but thousands and thousands very clever economists have worked on the area. So you don't have a chance if you now engage in doing research on that. There's of course an exception. If you find a very, very nice issue, then you might engage in it. But generally, don't do environmental economics, don't do psychological economics. So the question is, what should you do in the present? I would like to make 2 suggestions. First of all, we all know that democracy has a very difficult is in a very difficult situation. We have more and more countries in which democracy is failing, going downward, and dictatorship or authoritarian governments take over. I think that this is a real issue for the future, for the economy, for society. And we should really try to understand why this happens. Of course, a lot of people think the citizens have no idea about important issues. I totally disagree. It's the dictators and the authoritarian rulers that have no idea. They have only one idea, namely to work for themselves. So at the beginning, it sounds nice, to have somebody who says what to do. After 2 or 3 months, over, total failure, but they stay for the next 10 or 20 years. So we must really fight positively for democracy. So I suggest that the work on political economy, on public choice, should go on. Yesterday I talked to a gentleman from Turkey, and he told me that there is no research and no teaching anymore in public choice, though the problem is so urgent. And the same is in German-speaking countries, which I can observe, Austria, Germany and Switzerland. There is no longer any political economy in the sense of combining economics and political science. So that is certainly one area in which a future academic could well engage. And the second is, it's no longer psychology that is important. It's sociology. Psychologists never ever look at institutions, but institutions are important. And that is the field much more of sociology. And so I think the future will lie in sociological economics, which is quite different from psychological economics. Now my talk will have two parts. One will be on well-being, and the second will be on what can be done practically in research. And you will see it will be very practical. Now, I would like to start with this. That's happiness. You could measure happiness by how high people jump in the air. That's perhaps not the best measure, but it is one measure. There are many other measures. For instance, the U measure asks you how many hours in the last day were you happy, and how many hours were you unhappy. But what is today very, very central is this. It's a question asked in representative surveys. Please note, the first aspect is it's overall, not a specific thing. And secondly, with the life you lead, with the life. So it's not because today it's beautiful weather, therefore we are happy. No, it's your life you should consider. And it's on a scale from 0 to 1. When you are at 0, you are totally unhappy. Also with 1 and 2, you are very unhappy. If you are on 10, you are extremely happy. You couldn't be more happy. Now I would like to know how happy you consider yourself to be. So, who is at 0 or 1 or 2? Didn't you understand? I can't. Oh, there's somebody. What are you? 1 or 2 or 3? Let's talk afterwards. I think you are in a serious. You have a serious problem indeed. Who is at 3 or 4? Nobody. Who is at 5 or 6? Very few persons. 7 or 8 out of 10? Yes, many, many, many more. And who is at 9 or 10? Oh, how wonderful. And I'm delighted that my wife also. Yes. Now, the survey must, of course, be not in this way. It must be a very, and it normally is, a very serious survey approach, representative. And the major determinants of happiness, you probably know them already. It's per capita income, education, then something quite different. How many good relationships do you have? Family, friends, people you know. Very important. Because for a simple reason, what the hell do you have if you earn 1 million euros per year but don't have any friends? Forget it. Then health, psychic and physical health. That's obvious that it has a close relationship to happiness. And I want to emphasize the last, but the most important, in my view, determinant of happiness, and that is political conditions. Could you imagine that in a dictatorship? Can you be happy in a dictatorship? Of course not, because you are afraid all the time whether you will be cast into prison or even killed. Even in an authoritarian setting, this feeling is there. I think a democracy is, from this point of view, an excellent way to organize society. Now here you have the latest country rankings that appeared in April 2025. So it's the newest. And you see on the right-hand side you have the ranking in 23 and on the left in 24. You see the Scandinavians always win. Then my own country, Switzerland, is number 8 or number 9. Look at the 3-year average calculated in this year, in the spring of this year. Again, the Scandinavians on top. But the surprising thing is, number 6, Costa Rica, number 10, Mexico, and Switzerland is falling back to number 13. An interesting thing is that the big countries, Germany, Britain, United States, are far back. And now the most surprising thing, when I started my research on happiness, of course I thought that the Italians are the most happy country in the world, at least for tourists. It's such a pleasure to be in Italy, and everybody knows that, therefore you are so over-touristed. Yesterday we walked around in town. I think we didn't meet one Italian, Chinese, Japanese, etc., etc., etc. No Italians anymore. And I'm sure in July and August it will be even worse. You rank only number 41. And here you see what nonsense can be done with such measurements which are not carefully done. Look at that. I compared Costa Rica that was number 6. That was number 6. And Switzerland, which was number 13. When you look at inequality, Switzerland is so far better. There is extreme inequality in Costa Rica, but they are number 6. When you take per capita income, we are again far better. When you look at corruption, Costa Rica far down. Costa Rica is full of corruption. In Switzerland, of course, we also have corruption, but still in the ranking we are number 3. So how can it be that Costa Rica is ranked number 6 and Switzerland number 13? That's total nonsense. Of course, Italy should be first. What is missing? Crime. Would you really think that going to Mexico you have as little crime as in Italy or in Switzerland? No! Mexico and Costa Rica is full of crime. When we visited, the wife and I visited the capital of Costa Rica, we observed something surprising. Private homes had a fence around it. All the private homes had a fence around it 2 meters high or 2.50 meters high. Why? Obvious. The answer is obvious. So crime is an important determinant of unhappiness. And therefore, it's completely ridiculous that Costa Rica, which is a very nice country and I like people, nothing to do with that. In Costa Rica, you must be afraid of crime, and we all know that in Mexico, the same is true. Look, this means that I criticize some of the research that has been done on happiness. It should be measured much better. First of all, happiness, the differences between countries and the rankings are very, very small. Those of you who know statistics know that's all nonsense. One should group them. Scandinavians are good, and Britain and France and Germany are less good. Then we have the interdependence issue. That is a very grave issue. If you are healthy, you are happier. But when you are happier, you are also healthier. The same with income. If you have a high income, you are clearly happier. May I repeat that? Because Jean-Jacques Rousseau told us, it's good to be poor, then your nature can grow. Nonsense, complete nonsense. All the countries, all the people with higher income, you are happier. But of course, if you double your income, you don't double your happiness. Decreasing marginal returns. That's obvious, but it's important. So, when you have a higher income, you are happier. But when you are happier, you are a much more attractive person, you get better jobs, and therefore you are happier. You get a higher income. So if you are a happy person, you get a better job, and when you get a better job, you get a higher income. So you have this interdependence, and those of you who do econometrics know how difficult it is to separate the two influences. And I already mentioned that crime must be taken into account when we speak about happiness. Here you see in March, end of March, The Economist, a very, very good journal. You see what Mexico is a mass grave. It's not just a little crime. It's a mass grave. And people are not just killed, shot. They just disappear. Imagine if your brother or your mother, from one day to the other, just disappears. You do not know where she is. You don't know what happened to her. She doesn't exist anymore. That must be taken into account. Such things must be taken into account. Therefore, my plea is, if one does happiness research, one should have good measures, several different measures. Now I would make a relationship to the Renaissance in economics. As I already said, I think that's a wonderful idea and I really support it. So in a more narrow sense, it has to do with us, with the academics here at the University of Florence also. As I tried to express, the recent research on happiness has reached questionable results and is of little evidence. You can see that does your government or my government or the German government start news saying, people, we made a really good survey and our people are happy? No, they tell you, next year, national income, GDP, domestic income, will rise by 0.8% or 0.95%. What nonsense. Because GDP is measured, does not even measure material things reasonably well. Not even that. Because activities in the household are not measured at all. The activity of government is measured in a ridiculous way, namely that all resource-taking expenditures by government are value added. But if you look for what governments spend money, and to say that this is value added, that's absolutely wrong, ridiculous. And something which is important for Italy and for many other countries, the shadow economy, the black economy, is not taken into account. So, to evaluate the recent research in happiness, it's not very good. Now, what can we do? I think we have to look at the universities, how they work, or rather, the academic system. There's one thing, a huge publication pressure. And publication means publishing in first-rate journals, in the top 5, or at least in a very good journal. What you write about is totally irrelevant. Totally irrelevant. You just have to publish. Is that a university? That's not a university, that's a school at best. And nobody looks at the social relevance of anything that is written in the top journals or in any economic journal. It's just publish, publish, publish. Don't write a book. It takes too long. No book. Publication in journals. I tell my assistants always, you have to do 2 things. You have to publish, and secondly, you must change your gender from male to female. Then you have a good chance of getting a professorship somewhere. Now, I have 3 proposals. Before you start your research, don't look at the academic papers. Ask your grandmother. What does she think? What is the issue? And if your grandmother says approximately the same you think, don't do the research, then we already know what's happening. I would like to say the grandmother test is also very good to guide you what is important. In this session the morning yesterday, there was a paper in which Leonardo Becchetti was engaged and you were engaged on being fat. My wife and I were walking around in Venice, in Florence, such a beautiful town. We were so happy to be here. But you find those extremely fat, obese people. Now, if you ask your grandmother, is that a problem? Then she will say, yes, it's a problem. But then, being an economist, you can say something which is somewhat surprising to your grandmother and therefore probably to other people. Namely, when you are fat, you die earlier than other people. You have you have contributed by your taxes and contribution to social security, but you don't enjoy any pension because you die earlier. So we should tell people, get fat. I think that, of course, I don't mean that seriously, but there is another aspect of being obese. The same with smoking. Everybody says smoking is terrible, you shouldn't smoke. There's another aspect. People who smoke die earlier, and then the society has less to carry their pension sums. So perhaps we should even say, go ahead if you like to smoke, and if you enjoy it, go ahead. And the rest of us who do not smoke, I don't smoke, are in a better situation. You see, the grandmother test is an interesting test, because if you are not able to tell her something she didn't know, don't do the research. Do relevant research. The second proposal has to do with the publication process itself. When you submit a paper, as you know well, it goes to referees if you are lucky, if it isn't sent back immediately. But if it goes to referees, and then you get an answer, a written answer. In the first paragraph, it will say, that's wonderful that you submit this paper to our journal. It is an interesting idea. It's wonderful. We like new ideas. Then comes the second paragraph that says, however, where is the empirical evidence? A ridiculous statement, because when you have a new idea, you don't have any empirical evidence yet. That takes time to collect. And then there are 4 or 5 things. It's not analytically as correct as our microeconomic theory, etc., etc., etc. And at the end it says, unfortunately, though it is a great idea, we are not able to publish it. That's what happens all the time. You cannot publish new ideas anymore in how our academic system is organized. So the proposal is exactly the opposite. The editing houses or the journals should look around what papers are interesting, and then try to get them and to publish them. Not the other way around as we have to do it. That would change everything. And as every paper is now on the internet before it's published, that's well possible to do. Now, my third proposal is, if this reversal does not work, we should have a random selection of papers. That would go like this. Papers are submitted to a journal. The editor should take the superb papers immediately, without changing even a comma. Just take it. He or she should send back the worst papers. Let's say the 20% worst papers. That's easy to find out. And then about 70 or 60% of the papers are in between. And my suggestion is, make a random selection out of these 60%. And after 5 years, you could test whether the papers that have been published in the journal are better or worse than those where the normal procedure has been done. By the way, this idea about random selection is together with my wife. So you see that my proposals are very practical and could be undertaken. Unfortunately, I think that the universities are not active enough to turn the whole thing around. The universities should be much more active. Imagine a publishing house earns enormous money with all of you and with me. Do you know what the rate of return is? 40% on revenue. That's huge. When you go to a normal shop, it's perhaps 2% or 3%. And the editing houses have 40%. Why? Because we all do the work for nothing. That should be drastically changed. And I think the universities, and most importantly, the university here should try to change things basically. Thank you very much.